Okay, this video is going to show the object animation builder. Yeah, object animation builder. And this was an animation that was on the forum. And we got this set up here. It's pretty much from the dead straight on. I don't have a chain here, but probably get one. So anyway, the idea is that this thing swings like a pendulum, and these gems rotate up and then back down as they go. So, as a matter of fact, here's the animation from the. There's the animation from the web, and so that's going to be the one that we're shooting for. Move that over here. All right. So, the first thing I do is because block instances, if they're mirrored in the animation, when we see a block instance when we render it, they get exploded, materials assigned, and so on, but we don't do that in an animation. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I have mirrored gems, is I'm just going to take all my gems and type explode. You cannot hit this. We won't let you. But you can type explode. Those are no longer block instances, they're just polysurfaces. Okay, so that's one of the first things I do. Also, I have placed a dot at the center of this radius here for the pendulum point on the pendant part there. Okay, so the idea here is that we want these things to spin, and here it comes again. We want them to spin, but we also want this to tilt. And there's about, I don't know, I've messed around doing this animation about 3 different ways. Now, this animation is great, and I can appreciate how much work it was. As a matter of fact, I'm very intrigued by how long it probably took based on seeing the dot objects out here to rotate to and blah blah blah. But it's easier in the animation builder, so that's why I'm doing this video. Now, animation wise, this is fine, except for when it gets up to the top it simply bounces back, and that's a byproduct of doing straight up keyframe animation. I'm getting a little hypnotized right now, as a matter of fact. But we put in something called ease to, or ease. Actually, eventually we'll have ease to and ease from. And what that means is that when it gets to the beginning of a path or the end of a path, like what this would be, it kind of slows down. Okay, and as a matter of fact, an example of that was my test here. So here's a test, and you can see that it's not as abrupt when it gets up to the top. It's just swinging back and forth. And it kind of slows down at its peak of the apex, I guess. And so it's not quite as deliberate. And so we'll incorporate that into our animation. But let's go ahead. And the first way to do this is without that ease, and a really quick and dirty animation here, if you will, is let's set this up just like so. And I'm going to use that viewport as my my view. Let's see here. So we'll click the button. That's quite a lengthy talking introduction, but that's what's going on. Okay, so here's the animation builder, and some of this is going to go off the bottom of the screen. I'll try to keep it in here as best I can. First thing I want to do is use this view for the viewport, and what you should do before you go doing an animation is you should set up the viewport the way you want it. You should assign the materials, get the ground plane in. It should be ready to go, really, but I'm going to do it later because I'm not going to render this anyway. 400 by 400 is just fine. And let's go ahead and set this up Now, I want this thing to start on one side and go over to the other. And so what I really need to do first is I'm going to rotate. I got this piece and these, and I'm going to rotate from this point here to that'd be minus 20. All right. Oh, I got history on. Who did that? I didn't do that. I'm going to turn off all history. I don't need any of that business going on. Okay, so it's going to go from minus 20 over to positive 20 and then back. Okay. So there's the start of that animation. And then if we click on this viewport right here and say edit, use the current viewport and camera target. Boom. So now there's my animation window. And we're good to go there. So that's just fine. Okay. As a matter of fact, I'm going to move that window over here for now. Alright, now, the order that you add these items is important, and I'm just going to show you how to do it and not get into so much of the theory and so on. But next thing we need to do is determine how many objects we're going to animate. And here's the deal. All the gems and the hoop is one object. Those are all going to move together. At the same time they're swinging together, they're also going to be spinning. Okay? So, each one of these has to be its own object, spinning on its own pivot point. So that's four objects being animated. All right, so we have the camera populated, and again, that was edit, use current, and it populated these boxes with the proper targets. And then, so object 1 is going to be the first gem setup. All right, so we'll place that in there, and we can confirm what the pivot point is by simply clicking on the pivot box. And there you can see that the pivot is directly in the center, which is exactly where we want it. So we can just select it and put it back in the box, and now that pivot is that one. Okay, next object is this one. And then the last object is number 3, or last of those items. So these are the 3 spinning ones, and I want them spinning first before anything else happens. So we said, okay, you spin. Okay, now let's see if I can get this in here. All right. Yeah, you're just missing the bottom, which hopefully is not a problem. Okay. So now we're going to go back here. Careful not to move this view. And I'm going to pick everybody right there. Okay? And that's going to be the 4th group of objects. The pivot for that one has to be, and we'll move this out of the way, the pivot for that one needs to be a move from, move from there up to there. There's the pivot. Okay, so that needs to go back then, so it knows it needs to go back into the pivot there. When you do that, it disappears, so we're good to go. Okay, this animation really is pretty fast. It's really only about 2 seconds, which is 60 frames. So I'm going to leave it at that. And now here's the deal. We want the item to go, we want it to go over and back. Okay, so we want to start here, go over 20 or 40 total, and then back. Alright, but let's go down here. These objects, I had it rotate about 45, and